Have you ever wondered what really goes on behind closed doors in the Brown family? The drama, the secrets, the heartbreak. It's so much more than what we see on TV. Cody and Robin's marriage. How did it all fall apart? It wasn't just one moment, but a series of decisions, actions, and silent confrontations that led to the unraveling. So, what really happened? Why did things go from bad to worse, and what did the world not see? In today's video, we're diving deep into the behind the scenes struggles, hidden truths, and emotional breakdowns that led to the ultimate downfall. You might think you know the story, but trust me, there's so much more you haven't been told. Now, let's start with the big question. Why did Cody and Robin's relationship end up in such a painful place? Cody Brown, the patriarch, often portrayed himself as a man doing his best, but it was clear that there was so much more happening under the surface. From his angry outbursts to Robin's silent withdrawal, there were moments that painted a picture of a broken man trying to control his family and failing. Their marriage seemed to start out so promising, but over time, it became evident that the cracks were deeper than we all thought. Robin's quiet pain and Cody's desperate rage were always simmering beneath the surface, only occasionally bubbling up for the cameras to catch. And then there's the land, the infamous Coyote Pass. We watched as Cody and his wives tried to turn that plot of land into a dream. But what we didn't see was the emotional toll it took on the women, especially Janelle. Cody and Robin's decision to take control of the land, secretly cutting out the other wives, was the final straw. That moment, that betrayal, broke something in Janelle that couldn't be fixed. And let's not forget the other wives. The emotional abuse, the isolation, the gaslighting, things got so toxic that it was no longer just about the family. It became about power, control, and whose voice would be heard. This is the story we didn't see on the screen, the real behind the scenes of what happened to the sister wives family. It's heartbreaking, it's shocking, and it's the truth that's often hidden away. Hi, friends. It's Olivia from Sister Wives Secrets. And if you're as obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the drama as I am, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below to share your thoughts. I can't wait to hear from all of you and dive into this wild journey together. Because today, we're not just talking about what we saw on the screen, we're uncovering the real, raw, and messy truths that only Sister Wives Secrets can reveal. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this. Cody Brown, the patriarch of the Brown family, has always played the role of the man with the plan, the one who is supposed to hold the family together. But as time went on, it became glaringly obvious that his grip on his wives and his own emotions was slipping. Behind the scenes, Cody's psychological state was deteriorating, his sense of control constantly threatened by the shifting dynamics of his family. What we didn't see was the internal struggle that Cody was facing, the weight of his ego, his need for dominance, and his constant emotional warfare. It's important to understand that Cody's frustrations didn't stem solely from the tension in his relationships. They were rooted in a much deeper, almost delusional belief that he was the one who had made all the sacrifices for his family. Every decision, every argument, every moment of frustration was cloaked in this self-righteous narrative. I did this for you. I sacrificed everything for you. The tragedy here? Those sacrifices were often made in a way that alienated and hurt the very people he claimed to be doing it for. Instead of seeing the sacrifices as a shared burden or an act of love, they became a currency he used to manipulate and control his wives. And no one felt the consequences of Cody's self-destructive behavior more than Robin. She was the one he seemed to prioritize, the one he lavished with attention and affection. But even that dynamic was flawed. Robin, though often depicted as the doting wife, was not exempt from the tension and emotional manipulation that Cody unleashed. Let's talk about Robin's silence. For those who follow the show, we've seen Robin retreat into herself in the face of conflict. But this silence isn't about passivity. It's a form of resistance. Robin's silence is loud, like a warning signal. As Cody's behavior became more erratic, she withdrew further into herself. And in that silence, a story of quiet suffering unfolded. The most telling moment came when she was physically hurt by Cody. A slap across the face, a moment that shocked many. Robin didn't scream, didn't retaliate. She just sat there, clutching her cheek as if her silence could somehow absorb the violence that had just been inflicted. It wasn't just a moment of physical pain, it was a moment of emotional vulnerability. You see, in many ways, Robin's bruised face was a metaphor for the bruises that couldn't be seen, bruises from years of emotional manipulation and power struggles within her marriage. While Cody pushed and pulled at the strings of his power over his family, Robin's response wasn't to fight back, but to quietly endure. That moment of stillness, that absence of a response, might have seemed like weakness to some, but in truth, it was a powerful act of self preservation. Robin knew that to fight back would invite even more wrath, and perhaps her silence was the only way she could keep a semblance of control in a situation where her voice had been drowned out by Cody's dominance. However, the true emotional devastation began when Janelle, Cody's second wife, had her awakening. Janelle had always been the pragmatic one, the one who took care of the logistics and the details, the one who seemed to quietly shoulder much of the family's emotional labor. But when Janelle found out what Cody and Robin had done, how they had secretly taken control of Coyote Pass behind her back, everything changed. This wasn't just a betrayal of land, this was a betrayal of trust, a betrayal of Janelle's belief in the family that they had built together. Imagine her shock, her heartbreak, as she sat with the legal documents in her hands, seeing Robin's name on the papers, knowing that Cody had signed away their shared dream without consulting her, without her consent. That wasn't just a piece of property being transferred, it was a slice of her own future being stolen from her. The Coyote Pass land had always symbolized their shared hope, a place where Janelle could settle down, raise her family, and finally have a haven away from the chaos of their polygamous lifestyle. But in one swift legal maneuver, Robin and Cody took that away, and Janelle was left in the cold. The emotional devastation was palpable. This was no longer about real estate, it was about power, control, and the feeling of being rendered invisible in her own family. Janelle's grief wasn't just sadness, it was a powerful, transformative moment of realization. She had been manipulated, excluded, and lied to. But it was also the moment when Janelle reclaimed her power. It wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about anger, it was about taking back control of her life. When Janelle walked into that courtroom, something shifted. She had been knocked down, but she wasn't going to stay down. Her resolve was ironclad, her determination unshakable. The judge's ruling was a turning point, a quiet victory that spoke volumes. Janelle, armed with evidence of her rightful claim to the land, was granted exclusive possession of Coyote Pass. It was a win, not just legally, but emotionally. For years, Janelle had been the loyal wife, the one who always tried to make things work, the one who stayed in the background and quietly supported her family. But this moment, this victory was hers. She had stood up for herself, for her children, and for the life she had once dreamed of. In many ways, this was Janelle's true moment of freedom. The land may have been sold, but the emotional weight of that courtroom moment marked the beginning of Janelle's liberation. It was a reclamation of her autonomy, her dignity, and her self-worth. No longer would she be at the mercy of Cody's whims or Robin's silence. Janelle had stepped into her own power, and from that moment on, there was no going back. The aftermath of these power struggles left scars, scars that wouldn't easily heal. But it also marked the beginning of a new chapter for the women of the Brown family. It was a chapter where they no longer had to fight for Cody's affection or his approval. They were free to define their own lives, to live on their own terms, away from the toxic control that had once suffocated them. Janelle's awakening, though painful, was a necessary step for her to reclaim her strength. Robin's silence, though heartbreaking, spoke volumes about the emotional toll she had endured. And Cody, well, Cody was left to face the consequences of the power he had so desperately clung to, realizing too late that true control can never be built on manipulation and fear. These relationships may have crumbled, but from the ashes, new stories began to emerge. Stories of resilience, independence, and ultimately healing. And as we continue to witness their journeys, we can't help but wonder, what's next for each of them? And how will their paths continue to evolve in the face of everything they've been through? The courtroom drama over Coyote Pass wasn't just about land, it was about control, autonomy, and reclaiming what was rightfully hers. For Janelle, it became the final battleground in her emotional and psychological war with Cody and Robin. The weight of years of manipulation, lies, and betrayal had built up, and it all came to a head in that courtroom. Janelle had always been the quiet one, the one who put the needs of her family above her own, the one who sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of peace. But when Cody and Robin had made decisions behind her back, including the betrayal of taking control of Coyote Pass, Janelle reached a breaking point. She wasn't just fighting for a piece of land, she was fighting for her dignity, her respect, and her sense of self worth. When the legal proceedings began, Janelle wasn't just entering a courtroom, she was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one where she would no longer be silenced, no longer be a bystander in her own story. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as Janelle stood there, unwavering, presenting her case with clarity and conviction. She wasn't going to let Cody's manipulative tactics or Robin's passive complicity define her future. And then came the moment, the judge's ruling. The weight of those words, "You are entitled to Coyote Pass," must have felt like an enormous release for Janelle. A victory not just over Cody and Robin, but over the emotional burden she had carried for so long. In that instant, the years of emotional labor, the heartache, the feeling of being invisible in her own family, all of it was finally acknowledged. The judge had seen what Janelle had endured, and in a way, this legal victory was her redemption. Janelle's triumph was not just legal, it was deeply personal. The moment she was awarded control of the land wasn't just about securing a future for herself and her children, it was about taking back control of her narrative. It was a declaration that she wouldn't be dictated to anymore, that she had the strength to stand up for herself, and that her happiness and independence mattered. In a world where she had often been sidelined, this was her moment of reclaiming her voice. The emotional release that followed was profound. For years, Janelle had been the emotional caretaker of the family, the one who kept the peace and held everything together, even when her own heart was breaking. But now, for the first time, Janelle could breathe freely. No longer bound by the emotional manipulation of Cody, no longer burdened by the lies that had been built around her, she could finally exhale. And it wasn't just about the victory in the courtroom, it was about the emotional freedom she had fought for. Her next act of freedom was just as symbolic. Burning the old photos, the mementos, and the memories of a life that no longer served her. In that powerful cathartic moment, Janelle wasn't just clearing out the remnants of her past. She was setting herself free from the weight of a marriage that had always felt more like an obligation than a partnership. Each photo she tossed into the flames wasn't just an image. It was a piece of the life she had once dreamed of, a dream that had been shattered by years of manipulation and emotional control. The bonfire, with its crackling flames and rising smoke, became a symbol of Janelle's emotional and personal rebirth. She wasn't just burning old pictures. She was burning the emotional ties that had kept her stuck in a toxic relationship for so long. The symbolism of fire, destruction, and renewal was unmistakable. In that act, Janelle was not just erasing memories. She was reclaiming herself, her future, and the strength she had so long neglected. The fire didn't just consume her past, it cleared the way for her to build something new, something free from the shadows of her former life. But Janelle's journey wasn't the only one unfolding. Across the world of the Sister Wives family, another woman was also charting her own path to freedom. Christine, the third wife, had already made her escape from Cody's controlling grip, and her departure was the spark that ultimately ignited Janelle's own awakening. Christine had walked away from her marriage with Cody after years of feeling invisible, neglected, and emotionally unsupported. Her decision to leave was not just a personal one, it was a radical declaration of self-worth. When Christine left, it wasn't just about the end of a marriage. It was about the breaking down of the toxic power structure that had kept the family under Cody's thumb for so long. In many ways, Christine's departure was the catalyst for Janelle's own realization. She began to see the possibility of a life beyond Cody, a life where she didn't have to endure emotional manipulation or accept the constant power struggles. Christine's courage gave Janelle the permission she needed to finally take control of her own destiny. The difference between Christine and Janelle's paths was that while Christine had the strength to walk away from the marriage, Janelle's journey took a different route. She had to fight for her own autonomy in the courtroom. But the goal was the same. Both women wanted freedom, happiness, and the chance to live on their own terms. Christine's decision was one of bold independence. Janelle's was one of quiet resilience. Christine had the bravery to leave and create a new life for herself, while Janelle had to first reclaim her independence within the confines of her existing situation. Both women, however, shared a common thread: the recognition that they were worthy of more than the life they had been living under Cody's oppressive rule. Looking at the two women's journeys side by side, it's clear that they are both examples of strength in different forms. Christine was the trailblazer, the one who dared to step outside the bounds of the marriage and forge her own path. Janelle, on the other hand, had to fight from within the system, reclaiming her power through legal battles and emotional reclamation. But in the end, both women found their way to freedom, each in their own way. As Janelle stood there watching the flames consume the past, she knew that she had finally broken free. The battle was over, the war won, and a new chapter awaited her. Christine had led the way, but Janelle had taken the reins in her own hands. Together, they had reclaimed their independence, and together they would continue to heal, grow, and live on their own terms. And as we watch their journeys unfold, one thing is clear: the Brown family may never be the same, but Christine and Janelle's futures are theirs to shape. The journeys of Christine and Janelle remind us that even after the most painful chapters, there can be new beginnings. These women have faced unimaginable challenges and yet have come out the other side stronger and more determined than ever. They have not only survived the chaos, they've found peace, love, and fulfillment on their own terms. Their stories are a testament to the strength and resilience of women who refuse to be defined by the pain of their pasts. And so, to you, the viewers, let this be a reminder. No matter how hard things get, no matter how many roadblocks you face, there is always the potential for a new beginning. Christine and Janelle have found their peace, and so can you. As we wrap up today's video, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the aftermath of all these struggles? How do you think Robin's reign will unfold? And what about Cody's relationship with his children? Do you think there's any hope for reconciliation? Or is that chapter forever closed? Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. If you're inspired by Christine and Janelle's journey, let them know. Let's continue supporting women who are reclaiming their lives, finding their peace, and living on their own terms. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and keep fighting for your happiness.